Welcome to Causing the Effect, a podcast focused on the exploration of your mind, body, and spirit.
My man Gil, how are you, sir? How's everything?
I'm really, really good. Start of a new year, so always excited about that.
Yes, we are ready to rock and roll here. And for everyone watching and listening, if Gil looks familiar, this is my first interview of a twin, and connected with Gil Winch. I suggest listen to that episode. That was really focused on, I would say, more relationship advice from a psychology standpoint. Gil is also a psychologist, but more on the macro level, on the organizational level. And I'll let you just give a brief bit on your background and just tell everybody what you're doing nowadays.
Well, I was trained as a clinical psychologist. I don't have the right temperament, and I looked for something that I could be much more direct about what people should be doing and how to do it. So I did a Ph.D. in organizational psychology, and I did that for about 15 to 20 years. And I really, really enjoyed it. But 20 years ago, I sort of got sidetracked, and I stayed sidetracked. So I do very little proper organizational psychology, consulting other people nowadays. I have my own company, which I'll be happy to tell you about. And I try to bring everything I know to bear there, because it's a complex situation and place.
And this is CY?
Yeah, this is CY. In Hebrew, it's kol yachol, which means able to do anything, but it's a for-profit business, but it wasn't opened we didn't open it in order to create profit. I was doing fine before. We opened it as a showcase to prove a point. And the point we wanted to prove is that anyone who's chronically unemployed, and when I say anyone, I mean practically anyone who's chronically unemployed, in America, that would be, I think the largest group would be people with disabilities. Number two, huge group, ex-cons. It's need 10% of the adult population in America, and they're 5 times more unemployed than other people. So there are certain groups globally that are horrifically unemployed. And when it comes to people with disabilities, everybody figures, well, they're disabled, so they ain't working. But I thought differently, and I thought they're not working for other reasons, not because they lack ability, but because we lack understanding of how to allow their abilities to come to fruition. So after a few years of research and putting together a model, I opened CY just to prove that a for-profit business, which has regular productivity, proven regular productivity, and that's why we're a call center, to prove regular productivity. There are always other teams doing what my teams are doing, and you can show that we're as good as. To prove to the world, I guess, people with disabilities themselves, other employers, that 1 billion people in the world, people with disabilities, and 24, I think, million ex-cons in America and in many other places as well, are out of a job, not because they lack ability, because we lack understanding of what they need. And CY is a showcase. It grew, and it became sort of a business in its own right, but it started out just to prove a point. And if you think about it, it's a complex point to prove.
Yes.
Because we've taken people nobody else wanted and have never succeeded elsewhere, and that's our team. That's 100% our team. And we need to compete with regular teams, and we do. And we do so successfully, but there's an awful lot of psychology going in there in order to make it work.
Yes. And this is such a complex topic for me, for Gil, and this is what I do in my day job, or part of it. And what I feel like is there's so many marginalized groups, and even like a normal person. I'm talking about normal people get marginalized just for like, oh, well, you don't have this or you don't have that. And it's been such a frustrating thing for me, because it feels like it's not the right business model or strategy to produce not an all-inclusive workplace, but just like a sense of belonging almost. What are some of the issues you saw with, let's say, the regular hiring process, and then how did you end up flipping those on a switch for CY?
Well, I think there are quite a few things in the business world that just don't work, and nobody's fixed them. But everybody pretty much, when you look into it, it's obvious it doesn't work. Traditional interviewing, traditional screening only has about an 8% accuracy when it comes to how good people will be in the job. And 8% is really not much. I mean, you could do without it. 92% of people who are being interviewed, regular people from all walks of life, say they feel an awful lot of anxiety and pressure when they go to these regular screening procedures. And to me, creating anxiety in a job interview, regardless of what the job itself is, and you have this like fog of war, you don't know what you're coming in for, you don't know for how long, you don't know why you're being asked this or that. And you know, fog of war is good when you're at war, but I'm not sure you're supposed to be at war with the candidates you want to come and work for you. So the whole process was just like putting mud on a camera lens, just getting in the way of what you really want to see. And psychological research will show that the more people feel anxious, a lot of them perform way below their potential, and some of them way below their potential. So there are all sorts of populations that have been sitting at home for a while, and anybody who's been sitting at home for a while loses confidence and gets more anxious and is more succumbs more to stress. So then you put them in an interview situation with a lot of that going on, and people tell me, yeah, I've been interviewing people with disabilities. I just can't find the right people. And my reply is, oh, you probably have. You just can't see it the way you go about things. So we decided we don't want to choose our employees by how stressed they are and how they deal with anxiety. We don't have a lot of that in our job. And most places want to lower anxiety and make the job more enjoyable. So we want to give people coming in the best chance to show their real potential. And that means zero anxiety. So we pretty much flipped the whole process and other processes, not only interviewing, but we pretty much flipped it. And we do everything the opposite way. And we actually call it the opposite screening procedure, because everything is opposite. And I'll give you a couple of examples.
Yeah, please. I love this. I may steal some of this, Gil, because this is like
everything. I wrote a book so you could steal it. I mean, I wanted the playbook out there. So
awesome.
Basically, people come in and they're anxious, right? So they can tell exactly what they're coming in for by going to our website. It'll describe exactly what they're coming in for. And if they didn't see it, we'll tell them. If they want to come in with someone because they're feeling anxious, you can come in. We've had people interview with a parent, a friend, a dog, a parrot. You can, beads, you can bring in it. We just want you to feel comfortable, whatever makes you feel comfortable. And the interviewers view themselves as hosts and not as screeners. They are there to host someone, to see if we and they mutually want to have some kind of a future together, like dating. And it starts in the cafeteria, where people fill out a questionnaire about their loves and passions and hobbies, because people are most verbal and most animated when they talk about things they have passion for and know about. So we start 10 minutes in the cafeteria. The interviewer will make coffee, treat people like a VIP, show them around, talk to them about their passions, answer every question they're asked, talk about the job themselves, how they feel at the job, as openly as possible, just so people can feel on a level playing ground with us. And they even get to grade us at the end of the process. And the grade is how much our process allowed them to show who they really are, to show their strengths. And they can give us a low grade and we'll try and fix it. They can ask to do it again. They can ask to stop. So a lot of things about the whole process are different, maybe practically everything. In a lot of screening, you get an exercise, at some point you fail at it, and then they just move on to the next exercise, and you're left feeling shitty. We tell people, oh, we're going to get to a point where you fail because nobody can succeed fully at these exercises, because we're interested in what happens after you fail. We'll see if we can help you finish it, because we're really interested in, when people get help, how good they are at utilizing it, how good they are, and what kind of learning modality fits them best. Do we demonstrate? Do we explain? Do we point out the main factors they should be touching upon? That's the interesting point, not when they get stuck, but how far they can go after they get stuck. Because I want to find out how people will be within 6 months to a year, not how they are now. I want them with me for the long term. So I'm interested in the long term and not the immediate, who they are, do they immediately fit the bill? Scott, there's amazing research about screening, none of it good. For instance, that 50% of people who do screening think that it's fine to disqualify someone just because the way they walked in or folded their arms or for lack of eye contact. And a lot of people who are shy, anxious won't make eye contact. So, I mean, there's a whole bunch of people being disqualified just because they breathed wrong or something. And those are some of the things that traditional businesses do just because that's how they've been done, not because they have any good outcome.
First off, that process sounds fantastic. Low stress is definitely for me. But now from a like you just started from scratch. If you're a company or you're a leader and you're listening to this, you come across this and it felt wrong, the process, where would you suggest the CEO or the hiring manager start to be able to make smaller incremental changes to help their process?
So first of all, I think that you really should look at it as dating. You want to create a mutual relationship with someone and you want them to join your organization happily and for the long term. So be nice. And if their job, future job entails stress, and you can say, so this part is going to be stressful because the job can be stressful. I apologize in advance, but we need to see together how you feel under the kind of pressure that you'll experience in your job every now and then. And that's going to be the next 2 hours. So just so you should know, and hopefully you prepared yourself, but that's why we're doing it. You'll explain it. You'll be nice about it. When that is over, you'll continue being nice. Because if you look at what's going on in the workplace today, things have changed. People want different things than they want. People used to want job security and a decent salary, and pretty much that's it. Nowadays, people want different things. They want purpose. They want a social purpose.
Meaning.
They want to feel, they want meaning. They want to feel they're doing something more than just providing for themselves or for their family, because most people are really good people at heart. And we want to feel that in our job as well. We want to feel not only engaged, because lots of people talk about engagement. We also want to feel something that I think is the most important word in management, but you won't find one research paper about it because it's not considered a managerial word at all, but it's the most important word in management to me, and that's caring. People want to feel cared for. And I mean, if you go back in your memory where you worked and how much you felt you were cared for, not as an asset, as an individual. Most places, you don't feel that way, but when you do, if you have ever worked in a place where you did, I'm sure that you gave the best of yourself for the long term when you felt that way.
Exactly.
Right? And you know why? It's because we are social animals. We always have been. Even as primates, we provide, we do the hunting, gathering. Within a tribe. It's only in the past 200 years where everybody leaves their homes since the Industrial Revolution and we go and work for other people, where there's no caring whatsoever. But we've evolved to work, spend our days where everyone has a job, everyone contributes, and everyone is important. You can have fights and arguments within the tribe, but basically you're cared for and you're an important part. And that's how workplaces should be if you really want to get the best out of people. If you want to have the most engaged and motivated team, that's what you need to provide them with, a sense that they are cared for as individuals, which doesn't happen in the corporate world, or mostly doesn't happen in the corporate world, but that's where you get the best out of your employees. They stay the longest, they give everything they can. Yeah. So that's part of our vibe.
I love that. And that's something I noticed early in my 20s. Like, you worked at the big hedge funds, the Blackstones, the Goldman Sachs. I was like, okay, this isn't working. I just felt like a cog in the wheel. And now I've been with my company for about 8 years, and my boss is like my father, and we have like this whole little family, and it's really all about exactly the stuff you're saying. It's about meaning for me. I told them I'll be a plumber for you. I don't care. It's about how I feel. I never really cared about what I was doing. It's about how we work together. And I agree with everything you said about how it changed from security and money 10 years ago to now. People want a good culture. They want to have that meaning, that built in. That's kind of like a necessity. Do you think this not caring, or at least I like how you said that, looking at the employee like an asset. Was that just instantly built after the Industrial Revolution, just into the way society worked in the Americas in the 50s and 60s?
I think that's a really great question. And I think the answer is in the realm of psychology. And I'll try and explain what happens to someone in a position of power in a company, who at the end of the day is the CEO of the company. At the beginning, you're working with the rank and file and at the same level, and you do actually know what they feel, how they think. You feel and think probably similarly because you're in the same place that they are. Now imagine an elevator, but it's rising really, 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 really slowly. So you don't actually notice there's an upward motion there. But what happens every day, the minute you get your first promotion, is people start treating you slightly differently. They're slightly nicer. They're slightly more polite. They're slightly ask you if you want coffee, if they're making it for themselves. I'm not saying everyone's a suck up. I'm saying it's a natural thing to be a bit nicer to someone who has power and some kind of authority over you. Now, that happens many times a day, maybe hundreds of times a day, thousands of times a week, tens of thousands of times a month. And at some point, it starts influencing you. Your elevator is rising. You're not at the same level of the people you started out with, but it's so slow that you're sure you are. And research shows, and it shows it very well and very significantly, that the more power people have, and it doesn't matter who they are, the less empathy they have. In other words, when they're asked to tell you what a certain person is feeling, they'll be less and less accurate the more power they have. Because that's not the only psychological process, is that you're rising and being treated as if you're better. And at some point, it starts occurring to you, even not in a straightforward way, that, yeah, probably you are better because obviously you're the one moving forward and you're the one getting the accolades and you're the one getting the better job. Now, the higher you rise, you need to develop really thick skin, because then the infighting and the politics and everybody's agenda becomes something that you have to take into consideration, because it gets narrow at the top. So you have to develop really, really emotionally, really, really thick skin. And thick skin means that you are less perceptive of things, less empathy, less in touch. You don't realize it, but you're less in touch with the rank and file and what goes on. And slowly it does go to your head, and you do say to yourself, well, obviously I am really good, because look, everything around me is showing me how good I am and how talented I am. And then you start saying things like, yeah, but I know things from where I'm at now that they can't see down there. And I have to make decisions that cater to the general well-being of the company. In parenthesis, I also get a huge bonus when I do that. But I have to cater to the well-being of the company, not the well-being of the individual. That's not my job. It's like a general in war. I can't not send troops in because this one or that one might get hurt. I got to look at the larger picture. So there are all sorts of things going on in your psychology that enable you to be less in touch with emotions, with feelings. And because you have no vent for your own feelings, and there's no room for them in the boardroom or in the C-suites. I mean, there's so many sentences like, well, don't take it personal. It's just business. I mean, or in other words, we can shit all over you. It's just business. It shouldn't be personal, but of course it's always personal. So in order to survive that, you have to develop this thick skin and be less and less attuned to what's going on below you. And at some point, when HR comes to you and says, yeah, we need to take care of employee engagement, it's just pampering. I mean, I managed to do it without being pampered and in tough circumstances. So everybody, suck it up and let's go. But you're the CEO because you managed to do that. And you're getting paid to do that. And they're not. And they're not. They don't have to do it. They don't want to do it. And they're not getting paid to do it. So you're slowly losing touch. And the more power people have, the more they lose touch, and the more they get convinced that they're the only ones who can see the full view, and they're the only ones who can make the right decision. And there's a whole process going on that makes the word caring totally irrelevant the higher up on the pyramid you go. And the people who need it are usually the rank and file at the bottom of the pyramid, but the higher up you go, the less in touch with it you are. So we have cold corporate climates that cause about, I think the statistic is 70% of people who work are unhappy at work, emotionally unhappy. And if you've noticed, hedge funds and other companies, they're great with providing physical stuff, wonderful cafeterias, a wonderful plush leather chair to sit in. And what does it matter how great the chair is if you feel belittled all day, or you are so out of balance with your home and work that you don't even have any appetite to eat in the wonderful cafeteria, because it's basically all about our emotions. We're emotional people, and we are emotional and social animals. And that's the really, really important part that workplaces don't really cater to nearly at all.
Yep. I got ulcers at 24 years old from the hedge fund. So I went to the doctor and I said, listen, I was not in my spiritual phase there. I said, give me the pills to fix this. He said, listen, are you in a stressed situation? I said, I'm presenting to 6 of the wealthiest billionaires every week. So that'll probably do it. I got introduced to mindfulness, but exactly how you were saying was how these places work. And so it sounds like this, and that's a very interesting psychological way to look at it, because this was with evolution. As we got out of the hunter and gatherer phase, we became bigger after that 100, 200. The leaders had to rise up. So I'm assuming that happens to every leader in every kind of place, because you just don't, like how you were saying, your perception has to get more and more focused on kind of the larger macro goal. Now, this hardening piece, which sounds innate, it sounds just biologically, this is what happens. Is there a way we could reverse that hardening with like empathy training or something of that nature for the CEOs?
A few years ago, I was called in to consult the chief of police in the country, because there were a few incidents with really, really high up police officers that had to do with lack of values. Regarding sexual harassment or monetary infringes and stuff like that. And it was all over the news, and they brought in a new chief of police, and he asked me to help try and correct the situation. So I had the privilege for a year and a half working with one of some of the most powerful people in the country, and I had to work on this specific problem. And I learned an awful lot about it. I read an awful lot of research about it, and I found out a few interesting things. If you explain to people, not by giving them themselves as an example, but if you explain to people the psychological process they're going through and how it affects them, and you give them examples of other people where they can see clearly how it affects them, but they can't necessarily see it about themselves. But if you explain the process and show them other people doing it, and then provide them with specific things they need to do in order to reduce the effect or counter the effect, then a lot of them will go for it, because on the one hand, power is a wonderful thing, but it's so often abused in the workplace, and you don't have to be the CEO to abuse it. It gets abused by people with even a little bit of power, and it gets abused often quickly. If you look at it that way and you understand what you're doing, then there are things you can do to counter. And I'll just give you a few examples. You need to keep by your side, always by your side, someone who's going to tell you the truth about yourself. And it has to be someone you can take it from. And if you think back, or anybody listening will think about where they work, usually the very high up people, they're just going to be surrounded by yes men, or various kinds of yes men. They don't want to hear the argument, but hearing the argument is the most important thing they can actually do for themselves and for the company. You need to ground yourself. And what I do in our company, because I bring all the lessons there, is one of the values of the company is you are a team leader, for instance. You're a manager. You are not better, or I'm the CEO, I'm not better as a person than anyone in the call center. You could have people who are better husbands than me, who finish work and they go on and work with problematic youth or Holocaust survivors, or they do wonderful charity work in their spare time. The fact that I'm the CEO gives me pretty much two privileges, and that's it. I'll earn a bit more than the others, and I get to make decisions. But it doesn't make me a better person than any of them. It just makes me higher up in the rankings. I get to make decisions. And everyone is reminded about that constantly in our place of work. And when I say reminded, it's by me. And this thing only works if it's modeled top down. Because if you have a huge company and the top of the company acts horrifically towards everyone else and abuses everyone else and listens to no one and disregards everyone else, it's going to be very difficult for the rest of the company to act differently. It's got to be a top-down affair. And I have to say, the top of the police took it seriously and created this top-down, trickle-down, different way of trying to go about things. And it did have quite a large effect. You don't hear about stuff as much as you did, and there isn't that much stuff coming out. And police in so many countries have problems with values and ethics and stuff like that for lots of reasons. But in our company, you need to keep someone next to you who reminds you that, you're just the same as everyone else. You have to have a value of, I think, of humbleness. Adam Grant called it confident humility, I think, which is a great term. And I used to tell heads and CEOs, and just not only in the police, that if you're really, really confident in your capabilities, that creates humbleness. You don't need the spotlight on you. You know you have it. You don't need the accolades. If you're looking for the accolades, it doesn't speak that well regarding your true self-confidence and how much you feel it inside. Because when you do feel it inside, you become a humble person because you don't need it. And it's true. And when you see people who are the opposite, not necessarily happy people and not necessarily well-grounded in the inside.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I've indirectly taken that position that you're describing to ground my president and his son, because they've run the business for 40 years, and that the father and son. But my boss always tells me, like, you're going to tell me the way it is and give it to me the right way, because that's always what I've always looked at myself like a man of the people. And even though I've moved up and I'm a principal, there's still 12 people underneath us, and it's my job to make sure they're happy. That's just I've always taken that approach of everybody should be happy, the top and the bottom, and wherever I lie in that, I don't really care where it is. But being in that spot, sometimes you have to let the top know, like, listen, this was more of a money focused decision, or this was that. But that takes, like how you're saying, it takes a certain trust and a certain way about yourself to be able to do that. I suggest people listening, I know we've some of us have spoken of people at MD levels, like, look at the company that way, that you are of the people. And it could be like, I just kind of innately took on that position. Nobody made me do it. I'm always having conversations with the younger kids. I'm always having conversations with my boss and his son about what we can do better as a company on a people level. Because I always looked at it, is everybody happy? Because that's what the point of this is. Now, to bring this to meaning, if a person is in this job, let's say somebody like in the hedge fund like me, or somebody just in the wrong, how are they able to decipher I'm in the wrong company, or I'm doing the wrong thing that's not feeding me the right meaning I need in my life?
Well, that's a bit of a tricky question, because there are lots of variables that come in there. But basically, I think that from a certain level, you can decide that you're going to spread your wings, so to speak, and create a culture beneath you that you believe in, that you think will bring out the best in people. I totally believe that the more happy we are, the better we perform in the long run. I also believe that people who are scared run faster, but they can't run far. And people who are happy will maybe run a bit slower, but they'll keep on that pace. And that one's a sprint and this one's a marathon. And we want people running a marathon. We don't want them we don't want attrition and everybody leaving the company after 6 months or a year. So I think at a certain level, you can actually like spread your wings and say, I'll take it, the abuse or the non-caring or the cold culture, everything from me above me. I can't necessarily change that, but I can create something different below me because I'm going to model it and I'm going to talk about it. It happens not by chance. It happens because you work for it to happen. You talk about it happening. You talk about you want people smiling. I have a theory, and I always had this theory, that some time ago, I don't know who, floated the idea that at work, you have to suffer. You can't be happy at work. And I've been in so many boardrooms and senior management meetings where everybody looks like they're like sitting on a horrific case of hemorrhoids. Everybody's suffering. They're all like, and why we spend most of our waking hours at work? Why should we be suffering so much? It's not everything is a war, not everything is a struggle. In fact, the happier we'll be, the more creative we'll be, the better, the more healthy we'll be, the less we'll miss work, the better we'll do. I think being happy is really underrated in a lot of workplaces, and I totally agree with you. It's such an important thing.
Now, I'm assuming you touch on most of this in your book, Winning with Underdogs. Am I
Winning with Underdogs.
For you, what was that whole journey like of trying to, because from my understanding, you really put together a systematic method to help leaders make the workplace not only more diverse, not only more exclusive, but productive, successful, and even creative.
Yeah. Those are byproducts, I think. When you focus on people's emotional needs in the workplace and you try to make your employees as happy and focus on making their well-being as positive and good as it and strong as it can be, then the outcome of that is better service, more creativity, because people have sort of the emotional freedom to think creatively about things, and you can even encourage it. You said I was doing things which I didn't really enjoy, and whenever I see someone doing something they don't enjoy, I really encourage them to come up with a more fun way to do it. For instance, screening people all day can become boring at some point. So we turned it into an escape room. It's like a game.
Yeah.
So everybody will have fun, the people doing it, the people leading it, the people, the candidates going through it. I want people to have fun the minute they meet us, because I think fun is a great thing. We celebrate every holiday from every religion we have a representative of, even if it's only one person. We discovered so many fun days. There's the pizza day, the croissant day. There's so many unofficial days going on. We'll try and make something fun happen with each and every one of them. And it's not, I don't stop people doing their work and say, it's going, but their intervals, their breaks, there's the water fountain sort of thing. And I want people happy and excited, even though some of the work they do in the call center, it can be stressful and upsetting, and people can be really not nice. But the colder it is outside, the warmer it should be in the inside, and that counters that really. And I really think people should be, you should focus on making people happy, because the happier your employees, the better they'll take care of your customers and your business. You just take care of them. And I sincerely believe that. And I wrote Winning with Underdogs because we do have a sort of a one-of-a-kind playbook, insofar as we're the only ones saying this is how the business should adjust to the emotional needs of the employees, and not how you find an employee that can survive our culture and our business. And I wanted that information out there because I really believe that corporations should mirror the makeup of the communities they operate out of. And I've seen so many corporations where they don't at all. No disabled people there, but they're 15% of the community. In America, no ex-cons, they're like 10% of the community. You have all sorts of minorities, which you don't see enough of. Yeah. And I think any economy will be so much stronger when everybody contributes to it. And, there's been the great resignation and if you put aside the last few months, people have been having employee problems and shortages, and Amazon has warehouse shortages because they can't find enough employees. I don't know, like 24 million ex-cons can't find a job. Sure, we can find a few warehouse employees there, right?
Exactly.
And in Europe, they didn't have enough truck drivers to move the gas, so there were gas shortages. There's so many, there are millions of immigrants from Syria and North Africa and all sorts of other places where they're dying to fit in. I'm sure we could find a few thousand truck drivers amongst those people who are dying for a regular job and are dying to fit in. But there's so many transparent populations that we don't even look at. But we should.
Yeah. Yeah. And even for the people, because I always had this fear. Every time I started a job, I was like, I'm gonna get fired. It was just like that. That's always the bit, because some people's brain just wired for that stress that we were talking about. And like I've seen this in a couple of the young guys I work with. Like, what's your biggest fear? So every month we'll talk about it. And like the calmer these guys got, because they were producing. But the second I was able to, like, when you said let their wings fly, I was thinking about them. You let them fly. These kids have been amazing. And they were trying to figure out that we just feel more their answer at the year in reviews is we just feel more comfortable. You could let people, because I think you get so tied up in the nonsense of it. Oh, am I doing this? And you become fidgety. It's like dancing. You have to be able to flow a little bit more. And with that flow comes more creativity, comes more confidence, comes more belief. And then it just starts compounding on each other.
Totally. But there's one thing you need to put into that structure in order to make it work. And you have to be able to tolerate failure. And so many managers try to stop the people below them from failing, even a little failure. I don't believe in that. I think people need to learn, you can't micromanage people. It's like, I don't know if do you have kids?
No.
When you have kids, most parents are busy shoving this thick mattress whenever the kids are going to fall down or screw up. So they don't get... I think, wow, I mean, those are the best chances for people to learn. Now, if it's a mistake that's going to make the whole company foreclose, then it's not good. But there's so many small day-to-day mistakes. You can tell them, I would do it differently, but do whatever you feel. And then we can discuss and see if you want to keep on doing things that way or do them differently. And I think letting people make decisions, stand by them, for good or bad, and not, yeah, but that one, no, I got to... If you do that, then you'll not only have people succeeding more than they're failing, they'll learn, they'll be creative, they'll come up with new things. But if they're waiting for the minute they're going to be fired or for someone to look at them crookedly, and so you'll just get a very uninteresting performance out of them because they're so rigid and so looking over their shoulder about anything that should happen. So I tell all the managers below me, lots of people say, I always screw up as managers, so you're allowed to screw up, but they never tell you where they screw up. So you're left thinking, yeah, but he never shows us where, or she. So I'm not sure we're allowed to. Every meeting, I'm happy to share where I screwed up lately, and I do it a lot because I do. So not everything works, and not every great idea is apparently a great idea.
Yeah, well said.
And some of them are really not. So I actually make sure to put a huge spotlight on my own screw-ups, and it gives everyone license to try out stuff. Because if it doesn't work, they'll just chalk it down to, we tried this, and letting everybody know this doesn't work. So, and I think that's a great way to move forward and provide people with the opportunity to grow. You have to be able to allow them to screw up without intervening, unless it's a huge thing, in order for them to grow and feel that, yes, they have that room, so they can also try new things. I think it's really important.
Absolutely. And I think it's going to take, it's all about awareness. And I think the more people like yourself, just making this kind of in the unconsciousness of society coming and more people doing it, this is the only way we kind of get to a better, at least, process of screening, onboarding, training, all this stuff to end up being productive. But I'm going to link all of Gil's book below where you could find them. If anyone has any questions, just reach out. And Gil, just thank you so much for your time. This was really a great conversation.
Thanks a lot. And for everyone listening, I just want to say one thing if I can.
Sure. Yeah.
probably at some point in your life, you'll be in a position in a firm or in your own firm or somewhere where you can give someone who needs it an opportunity. And usually it's going to be someone, if they need that opportunity, who you might need to invest more time and more effort until they come up to where you need them to be. And you might find yourself much more involved with them than you thought you need to be. But when you have an opportunity in your life to transform someone's own life, someone who needs it, someone who's been unemployed and is poor and is isolated, when you have a chance to afford them a real opportunity and to let them back into the fold, so to speak, I don't think there are many things you can do in your life which will make you prouder or happier. When you retire, you won't be talking to your grandchildren about the wonderful bonus you got when you hit all the targets. They couldn't care less. You'll be telling them about that person whom you gave an opportunity to when nobody else would, and you invested time and effort to make sure that that opportunity worked for them. And if you can do it for more than one person, then, you know, your place in heaven is assured. But I think those are the most satisfying and happiest moments you can get at a workplace. And when that opportunity comes around, make sure to grab it and make sure to use it, because it's one of the most important things you can do.
Wow. Well said. And talk about meaning. That for me would be the biggest meaning in my life, helping somebody and really being able to translate, how you said, transform their lives. So everybody, please keep that in mind. And feel free to reach out to either of us if you want to talk more about this. We'll put Gil's website.
I'm on LinkedIn. I react. So feel free.
Absolutely. And Causing the Effect community, thank you guys so much for the support this year. Let's keep it going. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe. If you're listening, just keep doing what we're doing. We're on a constant growth mode here. As I ask you for one thing, just introduce one of these episodes to your friends, maybe one of your friends in these hedge funds or corporate America. Let them listen to Gil and check out his work. But as always, stay safe, stay positive, stay blessed. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.